And a very happy Friday to you at 12:09 in the West. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios, which for today's edition is in Park City, Utah. Mr. Randy Wangs at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, all week long, we've been encouraging our listeners to email us at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com if they're interested in MP3s of any of the drops that we feature on this show. And I never ask what they're actually going to use them for. Now, I secretly hope people will use them to prank call the LA City Council. But listener Chad asked me for a couple of Barbara Ferrer drops and then emailed me a screenshot of his phone. He now has it on his phone that when he gets a text message, instead of hearing a ding, he hears...
Next slide.
That is fantastic.
I will never be able to hear that phrase again and not be able to think of her.
Yeah.
I was at, this is a long story, a computer class last night, and they were going through the lecture, and it was a slideshow presentation. And when I would hear the phrase "next slide" come out,
next slide,
whatever it was that they were trying to communicate with me was lost.
You just immediately started thinking about Ferrer.
That's all I can do. What are you going to do? She broke me. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. On yesterday's program, we had an extremely dramatic interview with a woman who is a proprietor of a jewelry store in El Monte that was the victim of a smash and grab that created $20,000 worth of damage in her store. And she's furious at our elected officials. She's furious at our laws that allowed this to happen. And she's just fed up. And yesterday, we gave her an opportunity to come on the show and just vent about all of her frustrations that she's dealing with and the mess that they now have to clean up. We got such a huge reaction to that interview that we've decided to replay it for you the 2 o'clock hour. If you missed it and you weren't able to catch the podcast, it's something I think everyone in the state of California should hear, because it is the reality of what we live with on a daily basis. And our politicians can deny that this is going on, and they can say that we're safe, and they can say that the laws are working and the laws are being applied, but we all know the opposite is true. And they cook the books, and they come up with statistics that claim that California is safer now than it was in the 1950s, and we laugh at it on its face. But because they're the ones that control the books and control the numbers, that's what the newspapers print. That's what people from out of state believe. That is certainly what they want people to believe. So it's very important that the truth gets out there. And there's no better way of understanding the truth than to talk to the people who have to live with it. And this family in El Monte is a family that not only has to live with it, but they're traumatized by it. So if you missed it or you want to hear it again, you heard it the first time. If you heard it the first time, you definitely want to hear it again. If you missed it, you definitely need to hear it. We're going to replay that for you at 2:35 this afternoon. But first, the big story in the country is that former Speaker of the House and San Francisco Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi has announced that she is running for yet another term in the House of Representatives.
It's term 20.
She is currently 83 years old. She will be 84 years old by Election Day. And if she serves the full term, she will be 86 when that term expires. And we don't know what's going to expire first, the term or her.
I don't know. For 86, that's young for Congress.
No kidding. Man, that is just one step away from being a retirement home, isn't it?
I think it already is.
Do they have the news on in their office or Judge Judy?
A lot of soft-boiled eggs in the cafeteria.
For more, here's NBC News.
Actually, we're going to go to KGO, who had a better rap.
made the decision to seek re-election.
Who's cheering, Nancy?
I think she's at a pipe fitters union hall.
Breaking news in San Francisco to thunderous applause and chants of Nancy. Congresswoman Nancy.
Although I do understand thunderous applause in San Francisco that Nancy's running again, because if she wasn't running again, it'd have to be Wiener, Wiener.
Shouldn't she have made this announcement at drag brunch?
Breaking
I think they'd give her a much warmer welcome than the pipe fitters.
Breaking news in San Francisco to thunderous applause and chants of Nancy. Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi ended months of speculation this morning in San Francisco, announcing she will be running for re-election. Hello to you. I'm Gloria Rodriguez.
And I'm Kristen Z. After 36 years in Congress, Nancy Pelosi says her job is not done yet, and she plans to stick around for at least another 2 years.
Yeah, ABC 7 News insider Phil Matier was there for the announcement. He joins us live right now to explain why Pelosi decided to run again.
Well, Nancy Pelosi made the announcement this morning among her strongest and longest standing supporters, the union members at the Plumbers Hall in San Francisco.
Those were the guys shouting Nancy.
I see. I falsely claimed it was the pipe fitters.
Our values of our city are great, they're deep, and they respect the dignity and worth of every person. So when we say love, we mean let other versions exist.
What?
She can barely keep the dentures in her mouth.
For a second, I thought she said our city is grape.
So when we say love, we mean let other versions exist. We love everybody, and we really, really want our country to learn that from us.
I don't know if I'll ever use this, but I'm just going to save it because I like it.
We love everybody. To learn that from us.
Now, following the announcement, the 83-year-old Speaker Emeritus joined us for an exclusive one-on-one interview on why she's decided to seek a 20th term.
I think it's important for me to use my knowledge of the Congress, my knowledge of the city, my concern about the country for the benefit of my constituents. So it was really more about responsibility.
Did you ever think about not running?
Well, you always do. I mean, for 36 years I've thought about not running. You always have.
How long does she think about it?
Now, that's a new version of the laugh that we're used to.
This is the classic version. And here's new Coke.
Well, you always do. I mean, for 36 years I've thought about not running. You always have to measure what the value is of your contribution in something like this. And I never thought I'd stay as long as I did.
Yeah, but no one knows the pressure points like San Fran Man.
She's like a political acupuncturist.
The announcement comes almost a year after an armed intruder who wanted to hold Nancy Pelosi hostage broke into the family's San Francisco home and assaulted her husband, Paul Pelosi. Well, Nancy Pelosi was in Washington at the time.
All right, Phil, thank you so much. I do have a question. What about any opponents? What do we know about that?
Well, chances are there won't be any serious opposition to her re-election. Anybody who was thinking or even mumbling about running, including State Senator Scott Wiener, and Pelosi's own daughter, Christine, said it made it very clear that they would not be running if she decided to run for re-election. And this morning, that question was answered.
After the KDL Die-Fi race, you do not challenge a senior member in a primary. You will not win.
No, you're not going to win, and you're going to piss everyone off. And if you piss everyone off, at some point, the bell tolls for thee. Just ask KDL.
Well, and the last person you ever want to piss off when it comes to Congress is Nancy Pelosi.
We love everybody.
Her father, the former mayor of Baltimore, Thomas D'Alessandro, I'm not making this up, Randy, was referred to by the people of Baltimore as Tommy the Elder. Her brother also became a mayor of Baltimore, and they called him Tommy the Younger. And then they'd get real hot under the collar when you asked them if they were mobbed up.
Don't mess with Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, no. You'll be swimming with the fishes.
We love everybody.
So we have another politician who is in their 80s who wants to stick around longer. And a lot of people are asking the question, why are we run by a gerontocracy? Why is it that we can elect anyone we want in this country, and we're electing people like Dianne Feinstein, who has her daughter with power of attorney over all of her affairs because she claims she can't deal with them? And then you've got Joe Biden, who falls up the stairs, not down the stairs. Explain that one to me. And all the rest of them. And I've been thinking about this and thinking about this and thinking about this, and I've come up with essentially 3 explanations. And maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It's the best I'm able to come up with. Explanation number 1 is this. When people get power, they remember what it was like to not have power. And life is much better when you have power as opposed to when you don't have power. When you have power, people are afraid of you. When you have power, people want to make you happy. When you have power, you are somebody. If you're Nancy Pelosi and you go back to the days before she became a congresswoman, she was always rich. Her husband was rich. Her father was the mayor. She never grew up in poverty. She never did without. However, she was essentially a political fundraiser. She would spend her days making meatballs and buying cheap wine and hosting people in her house and twisting their arms so that they would write checks for people running for state controller. I'm sure it was fulfilling. She seemed to enjoy it when she did it. But now it's different. Now she gets to travel around the globe and meet with the Pope and meet with heads of state. And she gets to have memes created about her. And she gets to go on The View. And she gets to go on any television program she wants to go on and fly private. They treat her like a queen. Even though she's not speaker anymore, she's a speaker emeritus, and she is universally known. If she leaves Congress, she's not going to be somebody. She's going to be someone who used to be somebody. And there's a big difference. People have no memories at all. People had no memories before smartphones and technology, but they really have no memory now. Think about someone who was involved in a massive scandal sometime not that long ago. Think about Octomom. Octomom was the biggest headline in the news for a very long time. Does anyone out there even remember what her actual name was?
I do, but I'm a geek.
Okay, if we were to poll the people of Los Angeles, if we were to have a table and a clipboard on Hollywood Boulevard, and we were to ask 100 random people, do you remember Octomom's real name? How many people do you think would be able to identify her?
3, and that's because those were her kids.
So, if Nancy Pelosi were to retire, she'd be super famous right away, and then she'd be less famous every month after she retired until she got to the point to where the only people who remembered who she was are political nerds. And many of the people who would remember who she was will also be dead. So that's theory number 1. Theory number 2 is this. In politics, what you're doing is you're participating essentially in sales. You are selling yourself to the people. You have to be more popular than the other products. Otherwise, you don't get elected. And one of the things that is required for you to get elected as a politician is something that political pros call name ID, name identification. People have to know who you are. If people know who you are, that's half the battle. That's why it takes so much money to get elected to office. You use that money not only to attack your opponent, but to tell the people who you are and why you're running and what your ideas are. Because we live in a world with a lot of noise, it's very difficult to be known. It's very difficult to cut through that noise so the public knows who you are. You have to work at it for years and years and years and build up your public profile, build up your public persona so that you become a household name. Think about the top shows right now on Netflix or Hulu or Peacock or whatever, NBC, ABC, CBS. Can you even identify the names of the actors in those shows? It's hard to do. If I were to ask 100 random people, what's the most popular show right now in the country? I don't even know.
It's repeats of Suits on Netflix.
Okay. Repeats of Suits on Netflix. If we were to play the same game on Hollywood Boulevard and ask 100 random people who is the star of Suits, I don't think 10 of them would know.
I don't know, and I watched that show.
There you go. You're proving my point.
People would know Meghan Markle's name, but that's for different reasons. The
That's
two
right.
leads, no idea.
But if you were to say Clint Eastwood, everyone would know who you're talking about. If you were to say Arnold Schwarzenegger, everyone would know who you're talking about. Even Chuck Norris would get identified. And if the great Don Knotts were still around, everyone would know who he is too. The point is, it takes a long time to be known. And because it takes a long time to be known, these politicians finally get to a point to where people know who they are when they're beyond their best-by date. But if you've been working at something your entire life and you finally get the brass ring when you're beyond your best-by date, you just stick with it. Because why not? The third theory I have is that Pelosi and Biden and Feinstein and Trump and the rest of them who are McConnell, who are of a certain vintage and still in the game, is that they are animals. They have one speed and one speed only. One of the hallmarks of these types of people is they don't sleep. You know, Trump only gets like 4 hours of sleep a night. The man barely sleeps. And I bet you anything Pelosi's the same way. I've talked to people who work with her in the House of Representatives, and they tell me that she is at the Capitol until very late at night corralling votes, and then she expects them to be up and at the airport at 6 o'clock in the morning to go on a fundraising trip. And if you complain about being tired and wanting to sleep more than that, she will say, well, I'm going to be there and I'm 80. What's your excuse? These people just keep going, and they don't know any other way. I think that's a huge part of it. It's just how they're wired. And we all know people like this in our own lives. It doesn't necessarily have to be politics. Joan Rivers was like that. Joan Rivers barely slept. I sat next to her on a plane one time. I was going back to New York to do television. So I was up in first class, and I sat next to Joan. By the way, it was the worst turbulence I've ever experienced in my life on an airplane. We both thought we were going down, and Joan and I hung on to each other for the entire state of Nevada. But Joan could do whatever she wanted. She was rich. She was famous. She had her little dog with her. And you know what she did on that airplane? She worked for 5 straight hours. She was editing and writing jokes. She was reading scripts. She was doing everything you would expect a working comedian to do who is hungry in the business. That's what she did at 80 some odd years of age. she was an animal. And because of that, what we have ended up is a government that's run by people in their 80s or beyond. Feinstein's going to be 90 by the time she leaves. Strom Thurmond was 100. You could end up with more octogenarians in office this next term in Congress than the last one. And Randy, you brought up a good point before the show started. You have your own theory as to why people don't retire.
Because people like Feinstein, people like Pelosi, people like McConnell, I believe that they believe if they retire and have no purpose left in life, they will drop dead tomorrow.
And you see that happen sometimes. You see people die. That happened to my grandpa. My grandpa Phillips became a CEO of a company, worked his way up from being an engineer to running the company. My grandmother was a retired special education teacher who liked to garden. He went from being the CEO of a company to being the gardening assistant for a retired special education teacher, and he checked out 6 months into that. Peace out. I am not a gardening assistant for a special education teacher. God give me the Widowmaker. And that Fred Sanford heart attack came. That was the end of him. So here's our question to you as we marinate in these juices of these octogenarians running the government. All of us at some point have to answer this question. When is it time to hang it up? When is it time to finally say, all right, give me my gold watch. I'm going to play golf. I'm going to have happy hour start at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm going to enjoy myself. No more clocking in at the plant. Here's the issue. Is retirement something you're looking forward to, or is retirement something you're dreading? I know there are a lot of you in both of those camps. It's a question some of you are probably wrestling with right now. Maybe you're in your 60s, your 70s, your late 50s, and you're asking yourself that question right now. Is retirement something you're looking forward to, or is retirement something that scares the living bejesus out of you? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Right now, we're taking your calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. San Francisco Congresswoman and former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, announced today that she's running for re-election. She's 83, will be 84 by the time Election Day comes around, and 86 by the time the term expires. So my question to you is this. Is retirement something you're dreading or looking forward to? Clearly, she wants no part of it. What say you? 800-222-KABC. Let's begin with Lisa in Burbank. Lisa, you're on KABC. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. I'm up a little bit of both. I've been a hygienist for like 36 years, and no one wants a 90-year-old hygienist, I can tell you that. But I just, COVID was such a bad look on me. I just was so bored. So I'd like to retire, but I also need to put things in place that I'm either volunteering, because you can only golf and go to the gym so often. So it's kind of a little bit of both. I know my husband, he has to retire before I do because I drove him crazy during COVID. So he's more dreading it than I am.
COVID taught you real quick if you're a good couch potato or a bad couch potato. And if you're a bad couch potato, you don't forget that.
I was a bad couch potato. Oh, gosh. It was terrible. And I was so bored. So I'm going to have to put stuff in place. I'm excited about it someday, but I'm going to have to put something in place. Because, most of my patients say when they retire, it takes a good 6 months. I have people that are very sad when they come in and get their teeth cleaned. And they're like, but after a year, then they're used to it. They've got stuff and they're having fun. So it's a little both.
Well, especially if you go from being someone who is very busy to someone who has a completely clear calendar. If you're someone who, I guess, eases into it, that's one thing. But to go from going 100 miles an hour to having nothing to do, I'll tell you, I would develop real bad habits real fast. And thankfully, I live real close to the Betty Ford Center, so my next move wouldn't be too far.
I have to tell you, I quit drinking after COVID. I had to quit. It wasn't a good look.
Well, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Let's go to Patrick in Fullerton. Patrick, you're on KABC. Hello.
Hey, John. Happy Friday. Happy Jimmy Buffett Friday.
Happy Friday,
I really am a
sir.
fan of the show. I appreciate you keeping Jimmy Buffett so relevant. You know, it's a real bummer when he passed. To get to the question, though, I am both. I'm looking forward to it. I'll have time to travel and do this and that, and I'm dreading it. I'm not going to make as much money. I feel like I might get sucked into watching reruns or every day watching Price is Right. You know, it's trepidation, but I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Do you feel like your relatives would take advantage of you if you're retired? And by that, I mean not necessarily financial. But if you've got the grandkids around, it's real easy for you to become the Uber driver and the short order cook and the tutor and everything else.
You know, if that was the case, I'd look forward to it even more, because then you're more full of use and it's your family. That wouldn't be such a imposition. That'd be a blessing, I think.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. Let's go to David in Long Beach. David, you're on KABC. Welcome.
Hi, John and Randy. I'm 81, so we'll start there. I retired in 2005, but I didn't have that issue of trepidation or fear. I was forced out because I had to have a very major surgery. It put me out for a while, and my company, after 16 years, decided to trash me. One of those things that happened, I was 64, and after a few years out of the country, traveling and what have you with my wife, who was 76, and still working in a second career in real estate, have pity on her. It's a tough time right now in real estate, but she's dealing with it. In my case, after a motorcycle accident in 2012, I had a PTSD that went undiagnosed for 3 years, and I was a couch potato. I had some pretty dark times during that period of time. The two good things were I wound up cooking for the family, shopping for my wife and I, and was contemplating what the hell I was going to do with the rest of my life, battling a lot of no, I'm not going to do the QF word. Randy, you taught me how to do that. So I'm doing, quite frankly, for all these years. I speak quite well. I'm sure you can tell that. I'm a little nervous always when I come on the radio. However, I don't have tics. But you guys taught me the quite frankly tick. And Randy, when I was on with you about 10 days ago, you after the call, you said, "Did anybody hear that?"
Quite frankly,
me the hell up. So I'm the oldest living security guard doing high-profile stage barricades for people like Taylor Swift and Metallica, and most recently Beyonce for a couple of nights over at SoFi Stadium. Tonight I'll be in a coat and tie going to YouTube Theater to do dressing room work, and then tomorrow I'll be at USC doing a special high-profile assignment there for USC Stanford. So I'm working anywhere from 20, 25 to this past pay week. I think I've put in 55 hours. So I'm doing it. People can't believe I'm doing it, but I'm doing it, and I say all the time to these young bucks doing security and even the older bucks doing security, I say the following. I say, there's a lot of reasons I do this. I'm a fixed income. My wife isn't making a hell of a lot of money, so I do like the extra coin. But the other thing is, it's keeping me from dying, because I have purpose in my life. And anybody that knows anything about old people, everybody knows that the downfall of a lot of old people, besides medical stuff, because your body just goes down the older you get, and however you have to fight it with will and purpose, and that's what I do, and I'm pretty damn proud of it. And a lot of people in my company, it's a very large company, it's the largest security company in the world, and doing what we do. And I'll just close by saying that a lot of people take some inspiration from me, and I'm happy to share it. That's pretty much.
Well, that's great. That's great. And I'm glad to hear that you're dealing well with the PTSD, because I know that can be quite debilitating, and it sounds like you're living your best life. So thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate that.
That came out by I ended that in 2015. I came out of it by myself.
That's great. No meds or anything?
I do take a little what my brother and I call a happy pill. We both had manic depressive situation, but it's in remission for me because I take a little thing called lamotrigine. That's the generic for Lamictal, and I do take that not a lot of it, but I do take it to kind of keep myself on the upside of midway. My wife doesn't like it. She'd rather have me be right on the line, but I can get a little bit below the line, and then I'm not a real happy person, and I lose my motivation. But if I'm just a little above the line like I am now and have been for a while, it makes me sharp to keep the brain working.
When the hell are you going to turn?
Turn to what?
Are you going left or right?
Randy, I apologize. I was turning into my subterranean garage. I apologize for that.
That's okay. I just didn't know if he was calling us next to a grandfather clock or he was turning his car.
Or maybe the clock was beginning to run out, right, guys?
David, you're fantastic. Please call us often.
Absolutely.
And so are you. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
And you know, Randy, good on him for taking those pills after he experienced his PTSD. Because if I experienced PTSD, I don't know if I'd take the pills that they told me to take.
What would you do?
Well, why should I be forced to take pills just so I didn't abuse everyone around me?
So you'd just go all Faye Dunaway with it?
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, it's not my problem. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Nancy Pelosi says she's not retiring. She has no interest in retiring. All of us at some point have to answer that question. Is retirement something you're looking forward to or you're scared to death of? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go back to the phones and welcome Mike in Reseda. Mike, you're on KABC. Hello.
Hey, good afternoon, John, Randy.
Hi.
So, I used to work for LA Unified, and, I got forced retired 2 years ago because I didn't want to take the COVID jab. And, it might sound weird, but, when I first started in 90, the older journeymen, we always sit around at lunchtime and they would tell me about planning for retirement. I'm 25 years old worrying about retirement, right? Well, I'm glad I listened to them because when the time came that I was forced to retire, I had planned for it and I was able to do it. And I tell you, at the time I was scared to death, but it's been almost, in October, it'll be 2 years. And it's the best thing I've ever done. I mean, I recommend it to anybody. I'm having so much fun, man.
Have you developed new hobbies that you didn't have before you retired?
Oh, yeah. You know what? I went, my 59th birthday, I went and bought a Harley Davidson, and I've been riding that for the last month and a half, 2 months. And I volunteer my time over here at the local Little League, Granada Hills Little League. And I have a good time there. My grandsons play here, and, I utilize my time here. And, it's nice not having to get up. I used to get up at 5 o'clock every morning. And now, I wake up at 5 and I go back to sleep and sleep in for another 2-3 hours. So, it's kind of fun to just do whatever you want to do. Go with the wind,
That is a wonderful thought, Randy, to have in my head. Imagine a life where you wake up in the morning and you say to yourself, I'm just going to go back to sleep and I'm not going to get out until those women on The View are off the television.
I don't think I could ever do that. Mike, thanks for the call.
Let's go to Mike in L.A. Mike, you're on KABC. Hello.
I'm sorry. What is your first name again?
Me? I am.
What is your first name?
My name
again?
is Doug McIntyre.
Doug, you're
Doug.
fantastic. I appreciate your show a lot.
Thank you.
I like what that other gentleman had to say, Mike. And okay, here's the thing. I am terrified of my retirement. I don't think retirement exists in America anymore. And if you say I'm not wrong, if you say I'm incorrect, you're wrong. Because the thing is we have an America that is on decline because of our stupidity and our mismanagement of our finances. I am 57 years old. I have gone to nothing but private schools. I went to University of Michigan. I am highly educated, but I am still living paycheck to paycheck, having been the victim of a ridiculous divorce. And I'm sure a lot of men and other people, women included, can relate. If you're divorced and you've suffered horrendous financial loss, the odds of you retiring are extremely limited.
All right.
So
Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. We're up against a hard break. And don't forget, the name is McIntyre, Doug McIntyre. Tell all of your friends to listen, noon to 3, 790 KABC. Just don't tell them that me, Doug McIntyre, am massively addicted to pornography. Leave that part out, but tell them to listen. We've got 2 more hours coming up on the John Phillips Show right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC.
We love everybody.